Hi, everybody. We're just getting started here. It's going to take a minute to get everybody on the call, but I'm Arielle Brewster. I'm a senior editor at Today's Parent, and we have a very special guest today. It doesn't happen often. The Prime Minister is going to be joining us as soon as I add him to this call. So this is the part where the editor makes a very scrunchy face and adds the person. So bear with me while I add the Prime Minister to this call, which is taking place in my dining room. Very surreal. Okay, we are adding him. Sending a... And now we wait. Oh, here we go. Hello.
Hi, Ariel.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to this conversation.
I'm just going to adjust my camera here. Can you hear okay? Sounds good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Well, everybody, I guess everyone's signing on. Okay, here we go. This is the Prime Minister of Canada here to talk to Canadian families about what was in the 700-page document, federal budget, that probably all of our readers were too busy caring for their kids and working from home to read. So we're going to start out just by asking about the big, maybe 2 or 3 main takeaways that Canadian parents really should know about.
Well, I think the first thing, Ariel, is that this has been a particularly difficult and exhausting year for everyone. COVID hit really hard, but it hit particularly hard on parents with kids, on people worried about their parents, their grandparents. There was a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. A lot of businesses closed down. A lot of people in lockdown. People needed help, and we made a promise from the very beginning that we would have people's backs. We would spend whatever it took to support people through this, because we knew that one of the best ways to get out of this strongly is to make sure people get through it with the supports necessary, and that actually ends up, we're all better off if we're investing up front like that, and that's what we did. So the other thing about this, on top of making sure that we're supporting people through the end of this pandemic, with extending the family supports, extending the business supports, extending the supports for small businesses, for rent, all those sorts of different things, was recognizing the gaps that this pandemic has really shown. Whether it was that vulnerable communities were even further made vulnerable by the pandemic, and exposing challenges and everything from long-term care to marginalized communities. But one of the big things that came up, obviously, was that this pandemic hit harder on women than previous recessions. And as a result, the conversation changed in a really big way around childcare. For years as a government, and parents and advocates have always been talking about how childcare is not just a social program, it's also an economic program. Well, what we heard finally from the business community, from a broad range of people across the ideological spectrum, was that, okay, yeah, childcare is a good idea now that everyone had to stay home and didn't have childcare during the pandemic. So that's where, even though we'd made about $7 billion of investments in previous years in bilateral deals with the provinces, the big thing we stepped up on in this budget is $30 billion over the next 5 years on early learning and childcare right across the country. And that's something that we know is the kind of investment that makes it easier for our economy to bounce back and grow in a really significant way.
Okay, let's talk about that timeline. My kids are 3 and 6, so I have a sense that it's too late for me. Like they're headed, the 3-year-old's headed to JK. How does the 5-year timeline work for people who are looking to expand their family in the next little while, people who are pregnant? How do we get there?
Well, first of all, that's something that is actually, it's funny, not funny, because that's always been one of the political conversations around childcare. That by the time a government actually does something and invests in childcare, because it does take time to build up a quality system. And if you're going to build up a quality system, it's going to take a few years. And that means the people who need it right now might have their kids in grade 1 by the time the systems come. And that has always been a bit of oh, well, maybe we shouldn't be investing in childcare because it's so important to a few people right now. But then once they get kids into school, it's less important. But that argument just doesn't hold for me anymore. Because first of all, we've seen from my home province, we've seen in Quebec what 25 years of a good investments in childcare has done, not just for families, not just for women in the workforce, but for the economy as well. And this is just something that we have to do. So as we look forward at this $30 billion and $8 billion a year ongoing into the future that these deals will bring with the provinces, we looked at what we can do right now. So by the end of next year, we're expecting that childcare costs will decrease by 50% right across the country. So that's what this money will get right now. So certainly for your 3-year-old, by the end of next year, childcare costs will be significantly less.
Does that mean on average or like
that means
actually
on average?
On average.
That means on average. So that's what we're working, and that's one of the things that we're going to have to negotiate really strongly with the provinces on, because this is a lot of money the federal government's putting forward on things that the provinces will be delivering, because it's childcare is much more provincial and municipal responsibility. But we can put in there that this money needs to make sure that they're reducing by 50% childcare costs on average across their province. But on top of that, if you wanted to build a crappy system fast, you could probably get something up and running, within a year or two. But if we want to build a quality system that's supporting early childhood educators, that's giving proper choices, that gives affordable spaces, but quality spaces as well, it's going to take a little more time to do. And that's why we've given ourselves these 5 years to work with the provinces. And a lot of it is, or to have the provinces ramp this up, work with municipal partners, work with community partners. A lot of what we've learned is from the past 25 years in Quebec, where they've learned what to do, how to do it well. They've seen some challenges along the way, and we're going to be able to move a lot faster than they did, because they did all the hard work to get to a much better model. And in 5 years, we will have a model that will then carry us through for generations, and that's really the plan we have.
How do you actually create more spots when, like in Toronto, wait lists are so long and we don't have the space for bigger daycares? They're all inside schools. It's a real estate problem. And, how do we encourage more ECEs to go into the business? These are very pragmatic questions, but I think they're important.
Well, in this budget, we put $420 million towards ECEs, towards early childhood educators, training, education, valuing. Part of our deals and bilateral deals with the provinces will include supports for early childhood educators as a career path, as a quality career that allows you to grow and raise a family yourself with proper pay, because it's something that we need to value. So that's a piece of it. On the other side of it, yes, there's a lack of spaces, but that's not something that the federal government is going to be able to dictate. It's something that we know municipal partners, community organizations, the provinces themselves are going to be able to solve. And that's what this money is going to be able to do, to say, look, let's work with those partners. Let's look with, the municipality knows, oh no, we have a storefront or an area or a sector of town that needs more things. Well, here's an old municipal building we're not using anymore, or here's a school that recently got converted. There are things that they can do around zoning, if and only if they know that there is the long-term funding for it. Because no municipality wants to do something and then, not be able to pay for it 3 years down the road. And that's where the certainty of the federal government will allow communities to plan and to build in a right way. But what we're looking at is they need to be quality spaces, they need to be affordable spaces. And that is something that we're really pushing, because that's the only way it actually becomes the great leveler that we need it to be, that kids will show up in grade 1, prepared for grade 1, regardless of the community they're part of or the socioeconomic background or the barriers that their family has faced. We know that early childhood education is key to being able to be successful in elementary school. And that's where making sure that everyone has access to good quality is a really important thing for Canada.
How do the smaller home daycares fit into this, or rural communities where it's not a giant licensed center?
That's really going to be something to be determined by the province and the municipality. I mean, we're open to a certain amount of flexibility on that. Our goal is that parents have choices. Some people are still going to decide, no, you know what? My grandparent or grandparents are going to be the ones taking care of the kids. That's fine, but that shouldn't have to be an automatic choice. You should be able to say, oh, I have an affordable space over here, but I still prefer to keep them in the family situation or look at a different situation. That goal of creating options and choice, because right now far too many people don't have choices. When you're on a waiting list, you don't have a choice. When you're facing childcare costs that are more than you could bring in, if you were working, then you stay out of the workforce. I mean, these are the challenges that have left far too many families, in a bit of a squeeze. But on top of that, even as we move forward with childcare, we're continuing to do the things that directly help families. The Canada Child Benefit, something we brought in years ago that has made a huge difference in so many families. And this year, for kids under 6, we're actually boosting it by up to $1,200 per child. The first check will come out later this month for families that really have had a tough go of it this year.
Will that continue? Like, would we have both the CCB and $10 a day daycare?
The CCB is there for good. The CCB, the hundreds of dollars tax-free a month for the kids, that's just a part of supporting families. And it was never meant to be a replacement for childcare. We always knew we had to do more on childcare, but this is for after-school programs, for new shoes, for programs that families know how important the CCB has been in terms of helping out. That's going to continue. It continues and it grows. It's indexed. But on top of that, we're creating a early learning and childcare system right across the country. The provinces need to sign on. They need to agree to the parameters we're setting up around quality, around affordability, around meaningful impact on people's families. But that money is there, and we already know there's a number of provinces very, very excited about moving forward quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about what are the barriers, but I think we've covered that. It's going to be the bilateral agreements with each province and how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, different provinces have different views on childcare. We know we have some provinces are a little more conservative, but we have been able to sign childcare agreements with the provinces already on this. And certainly Quebec, that's got a head start on everyone else, is going to be able to use the money to further invest in their own childcare system or help families in other ways. We want to be able to make sure that everyone has choices and opportunities. And I think, quite frankly, as a number of provinces move forward with it, the ones that don't move forward with it, the ones that don't want to sign on to the childcare agreements, are going to get a lot of pressure from their voters, their citizens, their families, their advocates, saying, you know what, this is a really important thing for economic growth, not just for families. And hopefully we'll get all provinces to sign on in the coming years.
I hope so. Okay, we have a few more minutes left. I just wanted to ask you a bit about pandemic parenting and being a dad. I assume your kids are all home right now. School's remote for them as well?
Actually, really exciting. My daughter, who goes to school across the river in Quebec, just started up yesterday. Was her first day back in real class, and she already wishes she was back home in virtual. But it's been a different experience. My little one at 7 years old, he's found it sort of tough, but I mean, like, as I walk from my office to the kitchen to grab a glass of water in the middle of the morning, he'll be sitting at the dining room table with the little screen in front of him, and it's almost heartbreaking to see, on one sense, that he's doing kindergarten or grade 1 in that. But he also has a table full of Legos beside him, and I know he's doing that while he's engaged in school. Kids are resilient. It's tough. And they're all looking forward to it.
Who helps with the meltdowns?
We divide. If it's
Okay.
a technical meltdown, I tend to do it a little more because Sophie is not exactly technical. I also have the printer in my office, so whenever they're printing out worksheets, they'll come in and they'll tell me, mute the call or whatever. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I force them to say hi to the nice people I'm talking to. But listen, we're lucky because we do have the capacity to do that. I know a lot of families have really been been pressured, but it's something we're all looking forward to seeing done.
I guess that's a silver lining. With less travel, you're home more, you get to see the kids more.
That has been something we have absolutely remarked on. I'm normally gone three, 4 days a week, traveling across the country. I haven't left home or haven't left Ottawa in many, many, many months. A little bit to the office every now and then, but I've seen so much more of the kids. There has been a blessing there, but I think we're all looking forward to getting a little bit of a more normal summer anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I think parents especially are very, it's this waiting period, this TBD situation where we don't know about summer camp. We don't know if we can see our grandparents, the whole one dose situation. Like, parents don't really know how to come up with a plan for childcare for the summer. What would your advice be as we all kind of hope and wait for more guidance?
Well, first of all, know that the two things that we need to see in order to have a much better summer is, first of all, cases to come down. We need to get the cases under control. And that's, some parts of the country are doing great. Others are still a little more challenged. We need those numbers to come down. We know how to do it, and we need to get it so that if there is a little localized outbreak here and there, we're going to be able to do the contact tracing and the isolation and the things needed to keep those hotspots down, like they did in Newfoundland, like they did in PEI, because there's such a low level of background cases that anything that crops up, you're able to handle it. And that's where the federal government is working directly with the provinces to make sure they have contact tracers and rapid tests and all those things that you need. So we got to get the numbers down, and they're going down, and that's a good sign. And we've all got to get vaccinated. If we can hit over 75%, even with that first dose, it's going to be a massive difference. And then through the summer, people will be getting their second doses. We got 4.5 million doses of the vaccines in just this week, which means we're making great progress in terms of that. People are being positive about it. I got my 12-year-old and my 13-year-old very excited that they can now get vaccinated and are excited about that as well. I mean, we're moving in the right direction. It's going to mean a better summer. It's going to mean a more outdoor summer. What that means for grandparents, I think, will be family decisions. What that means for summer camps will depend on jurisdictions. I know my kids are signed up for a couple of day camps that they're optimistic are going to go forward. There's one sleepover camp maybe at the end of the summer that we're hoping is going to be okay as well. We just got to all hang in there and do our part and know that those rules will loosen for everyone in a way that keeps us safe, because the last thing we want is to be dealing with a fourth wave after that comes forward. And that means getting vaccinated and being smart about how we move forward as well.
Yeah, you've really summed it up. I think that's the same boat that we're all in, just hoping and waiting to see how it's going to go. Okay, well, our 15 minutes are up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, no,
making yourself accessible to Canadian parents. This has been great.
Well, it's part of how this pandemic has kept us all separate in so many ways, but the experiences and the way we figured out how to be there for each other has been really, really important. And I think a lot of people are reflecting on, positions of leadership are tough, particularly in a pandemic. I wouldn't want to be serving any other country than Canada right now. Canadians have been really, really good and resilient, and we're good at being there for each other. And yes, there have been so many tragedies, but there have been also some really great stories of people have been stepping up. And that's something I think we can all be proud of. And certainly we're going to learn all sorts of lessons about how to be even stronger and more resilient as communities and societies and as parents as we move forward. Certainly a lot of us have a greater appreciation for the work that teachers do day in and day out after having had kids around the dining room table doing math homework for a while.
That's for sure. Okay, thank you so much. I'm sure you're busy. I'll let you go now.
Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone at Today's Parent.
Thank you.